phonetics. All right. Here we go. All right, you guys, welcome to our final pod class of the semester. And this is my I've never been nervous for any of my guests, but if I'm being honest, I'm a little nervous for this one. She was my major professor in my years at Auburn University. And she's also my mentor and a dear friend of mine. Dr. Wendi Weimar, thank you for joining us on this professional development journey that we're in. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's start off with one of the things that makes you a very unique guest is you have a very unique perspective of being able to track, whether you do or not, at life data, students from high school with your high school background, undergraduate, master's, doctorate, and then obviously your doctoral graduates become your colleagues. So it's just a really unique process that you've probably over time have been able to kind of pattern recognize and notice trends with students. So in terms of your journey from teaching high school and teaching undergraduates, masters, and doctoral students, what are a few things that have stood out on the top end of personal, like, and it's not even a predictor of success because we know that, I mean, there's so many different variables, but what are some consistencies that you've seen in the different levels of students that tend to associate with relative success in students that you've had over the years?
So, first of all, again, thank you for having me. And second of all, I'm Wendi Weimar. My undergraduate degree is in secondary education in the areas of physics and chemistry. I also had a minor in math and a minor in theater because I thought the theater stuff would help me be a better teacher and have a different connection with my students than just babbling at them. My master's degree was in adaptive physical education and biomechanics, and my PhD was in biomechanics. So that's kind of been my background. When I graduated from undergrad, I worked with traumatically brain injured individuals, and then I spent 5 years teaching high school physics. And so that's what Dr. Campbell refers to my high school experience. It wasn't when I was a high school student, it was when I was teaching. So um, I think in what I have noticed as not just in terms of my students, but also people in general, the two greatest qualities I think are that people being curious and not being afraid to be curious. That they have two qualities where they love to ask questions, they love to know more, they're so much more focused on finding out about other people and other things than they are talking about themselves. That it doesn't mean that you shouldn't self-promote. To some extent you should, but you also need to realize that your energy and curiosity and inquisitiveness sends the message that you want to continue to learn, you want to continue to grow, you want to continue to improve yourself. And the second quality is not pretending to know something when you don't. One of the most powerful things I ever saw, I was working with somebody who I tremendously held in high regard, and somebody that they were talking to asked them a question, and they said, "I don't know." And here was a leader in the field, and I was like, "What do you mean you don't know?" And I talked to them about that later, and he's like, I want to learn. I want to get better. And if I tell them that I know what I'm talking about when I don't, A, I'll look like an idiot, and B, I don't learn anything. And so creating opportunities, recognizing opportunities where you can get better, I think is one of the coolest things that people can have in their back pocket.
It just as an example of exactly what I was talking about. Every guest I've had, I've given them a proper introduction. And for you, I was just like, I just went right, I just jumped right in the pool. It reminds me of the time I went and tried to teach a basic lecture when I went back to your class, and just all of the insecurities of being a, a student. I was just like, it just it's magic. Boss, isn't there there is research on that concept, and I always mess up the words because me and words, but it's an effect where if you know a little bit about something, you overestimate your knowledge, but if you really know a lot about something, I guess the reality of how little you know and you undervalue what you know about it. And I guess that could be a trap for a lot of people.
Well, and one of the things that hopefully we taught you, Brian, through the influence of Dr. Gladden and Dr. Madsen, was that you also wanted to be careful when you chose your words, uh,
Mm,
because you could open a door to a room that you didn't mean to open and you didn't want to open. And
that's a
so,
trap door.
oh yeah, and it's scary in there. Um, so there's so I also think that, well, there's a very famous saying that those who know don't speak and those who speak
Mm,
don't know.
wow.
And it's usually referred to in realms of political speak,
Mhm,
or somebody who's on the inside of an athletics program or something like
mhm,
that. And so you always have to be suspicious of
mm.
people who kind of want to uh, demonstrate how amazing they are. So one of the
Does that
things that,
I'm sorry, boss.
go ahead.
I've never made this connection, but is that mental similar to a trained martial arts fighter not being the loudest voice in a restaurant, a club, a bar, where if you're self-confident in your abilities, you don't have to. Is it a similar concept with mental knowledge?
Yes, so I think so anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
it sounds.
so there's two things I'd like to talk about. So one of them is some of the scariest people are the smallest, quietest people. Um, and you think about, when we think about strength, immediately we go to the bodybuilders, right? The
Mm,
big guys, right? But the
mhm,
people that have true applied strength, go look at a farmer, go look at a
mm.
rancher. They are not huge individuals, but they can move some loads.
They could tug a dynamometer.
Oh, you got that right. They got some serious hand strength. And so it's always a good reminder to keep that in mind. And then the other side of this, when you talked about that martial arts, it reminded me of the lengthen your own line.
Mm,
So people that are secure in their own personhood and their own level of knowledge don't need to well, and that's another famous quote too. If you have to tell me you're good, you're not.
mm,
So if just by your presence, and if somebody comes up to, don't you know who I am?
mhm,
Don't I'm so and so. Okay, you've already diminished
mm,
yourself to some extent. And what you really want to do is you want to lengthen your line. You don't want to detract from other people. You don't ever want to take away from somebody and say, "Oh, I'm better than them because." It's
mm,
not about that. It's what do you bring to the table? What can you do? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What can you do to make a situation better or to help an employer? Or, well, what do you think about this guy down the hall? Oh, I think he's a good guy. I think that he has a good heart, and I think that that he could have a bright future if he was a little more focused. But let me tell
mhm,
you what I think we could do to encourage him. What we could
mhm,
do to encourage all of our members, our what we could do to elevate our lower performing people. All
mhm,
sorts of things where you're trying to make yourself better, not stomp on somebody else. And I think that's another huge lesson that I've learned in life, that if you waste time trying to put somebody else down or being
mhm,
concerned with what they're doing, you're not focusing on contributing to the world the way you're supposed to, or to the magnitude that you're supposed to. So make sure your energy is directed where
mm.
it should be. What's important now? That's how you become a winner.
Do you
What's
think,
important now?
not making excuses for the human race, but do you think our brains are so fine-tuned to like laws of like, matter can't be created or destroyed. So if I extend someone else, I have to take away from my own, kind of thing. And so,
Yeah,
like, subconsciously, it's hard for us to trust that, no, if they get better, I will come along. It's not that I'm giving to one and then it's somehow taking away from my own.
exactly. Yeah. We've often said that the body knows the physics, right?
Hmm.
And so if somebody's trying to do a front layout, you'll often see them tuck if they're not going to make their full rotation before they
Hmm.
land. You see that all the time. But one of the things that I use with my students here, when they come to my when if they're just touring or that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, it's hey, Auburn's great. There's a lot of tremendous things that are going for Auburn. There's no doubt about it. But if you don't feel it's a good fit for you, please reach out to us, because we truly believe that a rising tide lifts all
Hmm.
boats, and that the world can only be what it's supposed to be if you're who you're supposed to be and you
Hmm.
reach your full potential. And that's the critical factor. So if you don't reach your full potential, you're uh you're shortchanging society, yourself, your corner of the world. Sure, you guys probably have never even heard of Wendi Weimer before, but here I am in my little corner doing what I can to elevate my students and try and help them contribute to the world bigger and better than I could all by myself.
To your point, they might not have directly heard of you until now, but indirectly they have,
It's true.
because they've had me, and a lot of what I do is influenced through you.
It's
And
true.
so those non-direct influences matter. And for the students listening, the people they impact are going to impact, and they're going to impact, and it's like a tree of the, the of humanity, as you will. It if I'd like to touch upon, it seems like there would be a conflict of interest between staying humble, not I say brag is a tough word, but like if you're in an interview setting, or if you're sharing, if someone's if I'm interviewing for a job or a position and they say, tell me why you should be right, is that just like a developed skill where you can still talk about accomplishments, but not do it in a way where is there subtleness between that line, or is it not as nuanced as I'm making it out to be?
No, 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 no. There's arrogance and there's confidence. But the way that, and it's different for everybody, how they go
Mhm.
about it. Now, my secret sauce, um, is my excitement. Okay. I love biomechanics, and I love to talk about people's how their foot develops and how you can lace your shoe. And so when I talk about things, I don't talk about them in the light of look what I did. I always and I it's not necessarily conscious for me, but the way I present it is I got to do this. I got to look at that. I got to see this. Um, and so it's because it's not a for me, okay?
Uh-huh.
It is on the scoreboard of life, I'm sure somewhere. But for me, I am so excited to share what I can do and what my ideas are and what I can contribute. And this is, having that uh, I can talk to you about whether an injured eagle is ready to go back into the wild or shouldn't because they've got arthritis in their shoulder. I get to talk to you about the work that we did with the Houston Astros. I get to talk
Hmm.
to you about the work that we've done with the athletes here at Auburn. The dog projects, and I mean, I get to share that stuff with you. It's not bragging. I'm so excited to
Yes,
talk to you
yes.
about it that I can't wait to get that information out to you. And so while I get to introduce you to the things that I get to do, I'm not ever saying, well, in 2010, when I was on Good Morning America, because we talked about flip-flops, no,
Yeah.
I got to talk about flip-flops on
Yes.
Good Morning America.
Yes. That's
How
cool.
cool is that?
Yeah.
And it's okay to be excited about who you are and
Yeah.
what your tools are and what your accomplishments are. I got to do these things.
So it's how it's packaged. It's not this shot is going to hurt. It's this medicine is going to make you better.
There it is.
Um, I want to ask it as an example of what we're talking about. Dr. Nels Madsen, who is an accomplished engineer. Would you call him an engineer? And
He's a
an
Yes, he's
Academy
a
Award
mechanical.
winning engineer.
Yes, that's right.
So
He has 4 Academy Awards for technical achievement. Yeah.
so the example is you wouldn't say I I studied under Nels Madsen. It was I was fortunate enough to have mentor or learned under. It's saying the same thing, but with humbleness behind it.
Yeah, the way that I tell the Nels Madsen stories is that I got to study with him and that he has these tremendous achievements, that he does have 4 Academy Awards. And it was such a privilege to sit with him and ask him questions, because out of all of his accolades and experience and accomplishments, he was so willing to share his knowledge with me and with everybody that would ask him questions. Now, of course, I could not. Another one of his great gifts is patience, which is what he needed with me, because I was not nearly as intellectually gifted as he was in this arena. And so it took a lot of patience on his part to help me understand the reason why three-dimensional rotation order matters. Um,
I use a Kindle to generally kind of give the that order matters.
yeah, yep. Because I could get my hand to the same place whether I did XYZ or YZX. I could get my hand to the same place.
Uh,
And I would show him, and he's like, "Oh, interesting."
and we all know that's code word.
For you are, the joke I use is they would get this look in his eye like, thank God breathing is an automatic process or you'd be dead right now.
Did I tell you the story? We were at I was visiting my wife at Health Plus, I think was the name of the fitness center, and Dr. Madsen was there, and he
Yeah.
he gave me a token gift question. He was just like, Brian, I was always wondering if there was a muscle that like he just basically asked me a question to humble himself, that to basically to make me feel worthy of it was the coolest thing because I was like, he already knows all
What a
the just
gift.
from the day
But
he
he
just
made you feel so
created
good.
the vector.
Dr. Campbell, do you remember, were you in my class when we taught three-dimensional biomechanics and he
He
was in the
did the
class
lat.
with me? He
He
did the
created,
shoulder. And we
yeah,
said, Dr. Madsen, he has no anatomical background whatsoever. As a matter
but
of
he
fact,
knew how they had to pull.
he used to call the ankle, the bulges on the side of your ankle, the malleoluses.
He could have been doing it on purpose though,
we,
just to.
we just were like, oh, isn't that sweet? But we said to him, Dr. Madsen, if you were to design the shoulder here, and we drew the bones,
Mhm.
and we said, if you were to design the lines of pull that were required to do everything that the shoulder can do, what would you
I
do?
was
And
there.
he did every
And,
muscle.
and he didn't know the names, but he said
Yep.
there has to be
Yep. There needs to be a
and
line of pull here and a
then we were
line of
like,
pull
that's this
here.
muscle,
And I
that's that
think
muscle.
like one of the things, like I think he may have blended, what was it, the infraspinatus and the serratus
Yeah,
anterior into one
yeah,
muscle or something like
yeah.
that.
So basically, he had blue green, and we were like, no, that's blue and green.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. No, it was blue and yellow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yellow
Yeah.
and blue is a better
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
yeah, it was one of the most impressive, humbling things where I was like, and it also reinforced for me the power of mechanics. Um, and how he used to just say, F equals MA. That's all you need.
Keep it
F equals
simple.
MA. And if the arm is going to accelerate this way, well, then we need a force that's going to do this. Oh, but you know what? That joint can slide, so we're going to need something to cancel out that slide and
Mm,
only get the rotation at that point.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it was it for somebody who loves mechanics and loves the
Yeah,
human body. It
yeah.
was It was
But
like going to a stand-up comedy routine.
to put a bow into that story though, it's his sense of wonder,
Yes.
it's it the excitement and the wonder of it all, and just it was never a chore, it was never a hassle. He didn't
No,
have to come to class.
no, no.
He rode his bicycle because it was wonderful.
Yes, and he enjoyed it, and he still enjoys it to this day. And he's been retired for, gosh, 8 years now, and
He's never retired.
no, well, he still teaches one
Yeah.
class, and he always reaches out and he's like, "Wendy, when does your class meet? I'd love to sit in on it." And so, he is just he's just magnificent. He really is.
How how important I was fortunate enough to find you by accident, just good fortune with the Kenny Howard Fellowship, and happened to go to the same church, and met you, and got to you gave me a shot, and I was fortunate. But how can a young professional go about finding a proper mentor? Should it happen organically? Should you always be looking for a mentor? What are I've never kind of had this kind of conversation about finding a mentor, and do you just let it happen, or do you seek them just like you would seek good counsel or advice in other areas of life?
100%. So, uh, for a long time, um, your story is the way I got doctoral students. Um, as I've gotten older, I've realized that I am a bit of a bumbler. Um, I'm a kind of a Winnie the Pooh kind of, oh, let me walk down this path and see what happens. Oh, I like it here, you know? Um, and so, but recently, as the students have evolved, as technology has evolved, and how the demands on specific environments have changed, mentorship and is become more and more important, and finding the right mentor. Now, um, I believe that the universe put you and I together. Um, Whatever you believe that situation to be. I'm not saying you need to believe one way or the other, but I believe that the universe has helped me um, be who I'm supposed to be. Um, I never thought I'd be a teacher, and the universe just kept putting teaching experiences in front of me until I was like, okay, yeah, this is the way that I interact with the world the best is through teaching. And so I need to pursue this. And that's how I evolved. Now, um, if you're looking, it depends on the situation,
Hmm.
what level you're at. So if you're looking for a doctoral mentor, then you need to hit the internet. You need to read up on people. You need to find out what you're interested in, and then you need to chase down the people that whose publications you value, who people that they've taught, the area of research that they're doing, um, and kind of chase that down. I have one doctoral student right now who got his master's with me, and he stayed on. And I've got another one who came from California who sought me out. And he had visited, whew, he had visited Stanford. He was working at Stanford as a research director. He had been to someplace Oxford or someplace over in England. I mean, this cat's you've met him, Buffman.
Hmm.
Um, and he's got tremendous credentials, and he could have worked with some very impressive people, and he went and met them. And that's the other thing is, you've got to introduce yourself. You've got to reach
Hmm.
out to them, because a lot of people, like, for instance, Dr. Campbell, do you think that you would walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I'd like to be your mentor"?
No way.
No, no way. That's not who we are.
No.
But but if somebody came up to you and said, "Dr. Campbell, I'd really like to learn more about how the muscles control the body. Would you be my mentor?"
See you at 6 a.m.
all day, every
Let's
day,
do it.
right? I mean, remember we had that student that had a traumatic brain injury,
Yes.
and he was not the smartest kid in the class, but he would work night, noon, and morning, and he would apologize a lot to us. And we were
Yeah.
like, buddy, you have nothing to apologize. You're here
Yeah.
working, you're grinding.
Yeah.
We've got your back forever.
Yeah. You're in the family.
That's it. And so it's if you see somebody and you want to learn from them, go and talk to them. You'll be surprised. I know it's intimidating. It's intimidating for me who's been doing it for 20 years, you know? But you had Dr. George, you know? Dr. George was your mentor. I mean, I was your
Well,
mentor too.
he wasn't my your yes and no. He was my it I emulated him. He didn't know me personally.
Okay.
It's like somebody would look up to Michael Jordan and say, I want to be a pro basketball player, but they don't know Michael Jordan, right?
Okay, I got you.
So I I I knew obviously of him, but he didn't really know of me. I was just another one of his students, but he had that effect on me.
Gotcha.
Um, and so yes, I mean, he was by far, a role model for me, but it wasn't like a personal mentorship where we had time equity, if that makes sense.
Of course.
Um, did you
And
guys just have I thought y'all had what was those electromagnetic pulses? I thought y'all might
no,
have had one of those.
we
Doc-
no,
Doc-
yeah, a sunstorm.
Dr. Weimer, does the mentorship dynamic change with colleagues, or does the process change, or in terms of when you're looking lateral or above within a working environment? Because some of my students that are currently graduating might be working at a rec center by the fall, or working, and so finding mentorship within your peer group, is that the same advice? Is it different or modified?
um, what is it? Uh, good students learn for those above them. Better
Mm,
students learn from experts, and the best students learn from everybody. Okay. So it's not about level, it's about
hmm
knowledge. And so let's say that you go into a rec center and somebody's been there for 10 years but has no credentials whatsoever. So they have what I call institutional knowledge. And
hmm
so that's information you need. And so you rely on them for that part of it. Okay. Now some of their ability to design a program might be antiquated,
hmm
but there's a lot of good things in there that you can still pull up. There's old, it's interesting. There's the pendulum that swings back and forth, right? So kettlebells are stupid. Kettlebells are awesome, you know? And kettlebells have been around for a gazillion years. Um, so it's not that and no one thing is awesome or horrible in and of
hmm
itself. It's how you use it and how it's being used. Different different exercises that were commonplace in the 70s might have a place now in a way that you're training a group of people in the 2020s. So there's a lot of be open. This goes back to the how we started this thing,
Yeah.
just being open, being curious, and accepting that everybody has something to teach you. Everybody has walked a different path, have different experiences that can help you to be a more full contributing person.
What I took away from those few statements was, if a student that's just graduating starts a new job, my mind traditionally I would say I need to find someone to mentor me. However, what you just unlocked was, don't be not open to mentoring. I mean, like in other words, the duality of, we all mentor each other and we could all be mentees for each other. And I think
100%.
that's really, really neat to think about.
Brian, when you came here, okay,
Hmm
so people that come to biomechanics come from two directions. They either learn the get steeped in the mechanics and then learn the anatomy, or they know the anatomy and then they learn the mechanics. Okay. I came from the mechanics side. My mechanics was my long suit. Anatomy was my short suit when Brian came here, when Dr. Campbell came to Auburn. But by the time he left, he had taught me so many super cool applications from his athletic training background that really improved my ability to conceptualize, apply, and teach the mechanics of the anatomy. But you were my student. Now, if I had been arrogant and said,
Sit down, shut up, and learn.
exactly, you need to learn from me. Don't you know who I am? Shut up. It's no. Oh my goodness, Brian, never thought of it like that. Oh, let's think about that. And I can remember us going over and talking to Dr. Bob McAlinden when we were talking about the tennis elbow.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
said, Dr. McAlinden, there's 7 muscles that insert on that lateral epicondyle. How do you know? How do you know it's the extensor carpi radialis brevis? How do you know? And he said, well, Wendi, when I do surgery, that's the tendon. And I was like, that's cheating.
I imagine a penalty flag, like
Exactly. Exactly. My father would call that a vulgar display of knowledge.
oh gosh.
But
So
yeah, but that's what I'm talking about, Bri. I had things I could teach you, but you had things that you could teach me. And by being open to that, we grew into the circle anatomy. We
yeah,
grew into where we're at now, where we've related the mechanisms of tennis elbow to the same mechanisms of medial tibial stress syndrome.
wow.
So
So it's to one of your original points, just be open to everything. Be open to things and open to, and I know sometimes, and I'm not being a hypocrite, it's hard sometimes to keep your mind available because like it's you want to have that Linus blanket and it's hard to keep that that to keep that sponge available for new absorption.
so just because you learn something new doesn't mean you lose something old.
Mm,
Okay. And that's one of the things is that when I was talking to somebody who said that I don't know, they said, well, I didn't know that. I'm very secure in what I do know, but I
hmm
didn't know that. So that's why I felt comfortable asking that question. And if somebody kind of looks down on you for trying to learn, they're the ones that are threatened. They're the
yeah,
ones that are trying to maintain their
yeah.
little cavity of knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, so
But
yeah,
doesn't it give you credibility? So like imagine you're in a meeting, maybe one of our students is a health promotion major and they're in a committee meeting and two scenarios. The first scenario, you have an answer for everything and in it. And the other scenario is that's a good question. I'm not quite sure. Let me get back to you this afternoon with let me process it. Let me think. Let me do a little research. I'll get back to you. That gives you more
credibility.
yeah, credibility, like equity for when you do answer on the spot. People are like, wow, they must be sure of what they're saying because they don't always have an answer for everything.
Well, and that's the other side too of being prepared, right?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So you ask me a question. I'm walking down the hall here, and Dr. Gladden says to me, "Hey, Weimer, what lever is the elbow?" Whew, Dr. Gladden, that's a great question.
What muscle are we talking about?
Well, hold on now. I know that concentric elbow flexion, that's third class all day. And so if I think about the tricep, Dr. Gladden, I think it can do all three. I think it can be all 3 levers, but you know what? I'm going to go and check. Let me check to make sure. But I'm pretty sure. And what's really interesting, Dr. Glad, not only is it all 3, but it can do all 4 functions of a simple machine, but not at the same time. Let me get back to you on that. So you drop these nuggets of what you do know, which gives you credibility. And then you up your credibility by saying, I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. I don't want to mislead you. Let me go check my notes and get back to you.
Yeah.
So you do have to have some walking around knowledge.
True. Yeah, because if you're at a meeting, you can't every
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know if like why are you here?
Why
Why
did
are
we
you
hire
here?
you? But see,
What's that
that's one of the
meme?
things, that's one of the problems
Uh-huh.
that the current society has, because we walk around with so much knowledge on our phone that we
Mm,
don't
but
always
it's
keep.
not, but it's not functional knowledge.
Exactly. And that's where some of the best questions come from, right? So our brain is this amazing pattern recognition machine. That's what it does. It recognizes patterns. But if you don't know the pattern for the overhand throw, then how can you compare the components of the overhand throw to the components of the underhand pitching motion in
Hmm.
softball? So you've got to have some of that stuff in your brain. You can't just rely on your phone, your computer, or
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
to
Your Linus
to
blanket.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can have it as a Linus blanket, but you got to be able to talk about it too. You got to take the thumb out of your
Yeah.
mouth and
Yeah.
deliver something to you got to have some goods to put on the table.
The statement you made about just because you learn something new doesn't mean you forget something is a callback to the extending someone else's line won't cut you. I mean, it's just so interesting how there's parallels with a lot of these concepts. What in terms of self, I know you have a martial arts background,
Yeah,
and what has your martial arts background taught you about like your personal development in regard to getting intrinsic motivation, getting better, making yourself a lot of themes that you talked about previously
yeah.
kind of seem to tie in to some of that martial arts background.
Oh yeah.
And can you briefly talk about kind of what martial arts has brought into your career in terms of development?
Sure. Um, First of all, it taught me to be um, it taught me to be calm in crazy situations, because I knew that I had some tools that could aid me, maybe not save me, but aid me. In terms of my personal development, the it happened. This story has stuck with me for a very long time. So I started training in martial arts, and Taekwondo was my sport, my martial art. And I started training, and you start as a white belt, and about every 3 or 4 months there would be a testing to promote yourself, and you didn't necessarily go up a belt level, but you would get stripes on your belts for achieving certain things. And so I had been there about 3 months or so, and they posted the testing list, and I wasn't on it, and I was like, and I was an okay athlete, and I was doing everything that I saw everybody else doing. I knew all my attacks and my blocks and my forms and my all of my tools. I knew all of them, and I wasn't on the list. So the next list came out, and I was like, I wasn't on the next list. And so I went to my master and I said, "Sir, I don't understand. I can do all the things you want me to do, and I can do them better than a majority of the people in here." And he said, "Are you doing it the best to your ability?"
Mm.
And that was a cold bucket of water in the face, because it taught me to stop measuring myself by other people. Um, there will be people that are better than you always. There are better martial artists than me. There are better researchers than me. There are better teachers than me. Um, but there's also things that I can do pretty good. And if I continue to measure myself against other people, I'm always going to be arrogant and I'm always going to be defeated. Whereas I can find my confidence, my self-acceptance at where I'm at right now, because I continue to grow, I continue to get better, I continue to strive, because I'm not yet the best I can be. And I need to keep looking for those opportunities
Wow.
to get better. And that was, let's see, golly, 19, 1991.
Is that lesson permanently, or do you sometimes relapse and have to remember that lesson And when I say that lesson, just in general, is it every night? You know, how sometimes people will go on a retreat to
Mhm.
kind of so is that lesson, was it so seminal that it's always there, or is it human nature to be like, I have to go back and re-remember those very important key lessons?
Um, a little bit of both. So
Mhm.
when you've been around long enough, you've reminded yourself
That
enough
What a
that
great
you're
point.
like, oh, yep, that's one of
There's a
those.
pothole on this
Yep,
road that the
yep,
state has never going to fix.
yep.
I'm gonna
And
I'm gonna avoid it.
throughout this talk, I keep talking about lengthening your own line. And that was one of those situations where I was diminishing other people's lines
Mm,
and trying to elevate myself. And so
wow.
now that lengthen your own line has become an umbrella to represent any time that I'm getting too big for my britches or
Mhm.
I'm diminishing myself too much too. Um, so
Wow,
that's
that's a really good point because we only typically think of one end of the maybe I'm choosing a wrong word, but like over self-confident arrogance in, but there's another polar end, and that's diminishing your knowledge and self lack of self-confidence. And wow, I never thought about that, the pendulum in that regard, that we
right, so
need
you
to
don't
not
wanna
under
shorten
our
your
value.
line. You don't
Yeah.
wanna shorten your line, you never wanna diminish who you are either. Like, "Oh, well, I only have 50 publications and they have 100 publications, so I'm not that, terrible." Be proud. Be
Yeah.
proud of what you've accomplished, don't be afraid to we were just talking about this today. You've got to celebrate sometimes, and sometimes you got to celebrate the small steps before you can get to the big steps. We have a student who just got their first paper as a first author published. And so it's like, let's celebrate this. This is a big
Yes.
deal, you know? And he's like, yeah, but it's only one. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is a first. And your second one you should celebrate too, because this is all part of your
Yeah.
growth. This is all part of your evolution, and you need to embrace that.
For the students, they know that I'm an analogy. I have to think of things in analogies. So I'm thinking of a staircase,
Yeah.
and the top step on the second floor is made up of the first step literally is made up of that last step.
So, Bri, I like to look at it from a rehab perspective.
Uh-huh.
Um, so we study feet here a lot, and one of the things that people are like, what orthotic should I get? What insole?"
Uh-huh.
And my position about insoles and orthotics is that they should be like braces on your teeth. They should fix it a little bit, and once you've adapted to that fix, then you should move on and move on
Yeah.
and move on and move on. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. So it's like when you've got braces on your teeth, they put them on there and they
Uh-huh.
tighten them a little bit, and then they say, come back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then they tighten it a little bit. That's that growth, you know?
Mm.
So you've got the here, this is how you write a paper, this is how you do research, this is how you collect this is how you do that, this is how you reduce the data. um, but when you first do it, when you first build your pipeline for Vicon, or try and try to write your program to synthesize or reduce the data, that's you feel like you are treading water in the middle of the North Atlantic in winter. I mean, you are so far in over your head. And then after you've done it twice, you start teaching an undergrad how to do it, and you're like, are you kidding me? Look where I'm at now, you know? People are asking me questions. So it's pretty cool.
Do, do you think that, and I know that's cliche, kinesiology in general, typically we come from sports, athletics, competition. There's a natural embeddedness of competition,
Yeah.
measurables. That athlete is 6'5" and 300 and runs this and lifts this, right? How many points? Do you think that, or is that universal with all fields, or do you think there's a sense of this extra that comes with kinesiology that we kind of have this extra addedness of competition with other people? Or is that just
So
natural to humans?
I think there's part of that. Okay. I think competition is inherent in us. I really do. But um I am terrible at single individual sports. Terrible. Okay. You time me from home to first. I'm in the middle to the upper middle. Okay. You say, Wendy, we're gonna race to 60 feet. My time, I'll be lower middle. I just do not perform well when me doing well is the only benefit. So I think there are different people in different
Wow.
situations. Okay. I am I'm a let's do it all. I'm a team player,
Team player.
team player. And I've actually gone to the coach where I'm like, Coach, so and so is playing better than me today. Take me out. Put so and so in, because that's where my focus is. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about we, right? It's not about me. It's about we. Um, all of that kind of thing. Now, my brother is an engineer, and Dr. Matson was an engineer. Okay, is an engineer, but engineers are trained differently. And so they are set up into a different role. They're building things and creating things and constructing things that if those things fail, people get hurt or die. Construction, architects, same sorts of stuff, right? I saw the guy that built that was the architect for the Twin Towers,
Hmm.
and they interviewed him right after the airplanes hit, and he was sobbing. And he said, I calculated what would happen if a plane hit. I calculated what would happen if a 747 laid down with people would smash into my building, and we would have been fine. And if you think about it, they were fine for a very long time. He said, I never took the fuel into
Mm.
consideration. And the fuel is what caused that building to collapse.
Hmm.
And he was so guilty, I guess is
Wow.
the only way to say that. And my heart just ached for that man,
Yeah.
because I was like, dude, you thought about all of these crazy out of the box
Yeah.
things that could have
Yeah.
happened. And this is the one that they were able to exploit.
Yeah.
My heart just ached for him.
So
So,
for them, it's nothing personal. It's just the numbers. For
well,
engineers, it's not about emotions. It's not about, it's about numbers.
it's
It's
about,
about,
can I do this? Can I build this? And is my design
hmm.
better, safer, stronger, effective than yours? Not because I
Mm,
want to beat you,
now I
but
understand.
because it needs to be better.
Now I understand. It's
And
nothing
then
personal.
no, and then if you look at doctors, well, it is personal because they tend to be jerks. And engineers tend to be, they tend to be very their humor is very, very, very nerdish,
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, at least my brother is. But then you look at doctors who are taught and lawyers who are taught in the Socratic method, it's all about beating them down. It's about having the best grade in the class. It's about learning on your own. It's like, oh, so there's a gas leak up on Thatch and
Huh?
Armstrong. So we're okay.
We,
We
okay.
just need to stay here. Sorry about that.
No, no problem.
Um, so those guys are taught in the Socratic method, which is you need to come in tomorrow and tell me everything you know about the humerus. See you tomorrow. And then they have to go out and learn it, and then they come back in, and now now the person can ask them any questions. Remember we used to do the applied anatomy class where they had to throw a dart,
Hmm.
and they had to answer whatever question that was.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
it's
they could hit a bullseye and get a free
get an
pass.
automatic A. Yep. People practice throwing
For-
darts for months.
Did did you God, you still reversing the pendulum on me after a few years. So in my brain, I went with what's negative about being a KNES major. numbers and competition. And then all of a sudden you said, no, Bri, it's the teamwork that makes us unique and makes us special. And being part of a team, a basketball team, a track team, even in track, you're an individual, but you're part of a team trying to get points and trying to. And what a great point that we really have an advantage of bringing it back to that original point about rising tide and raising ships. And what better way of learning those lessons than with sports?
Yeah. Well, and I struggled with exercise physiology, and so I found somebody who was really good at exercise physiology, and I said, teach me. And because what would happen in my learning is that I would learn this fact and I would learn this fact, but I could never connect them. And I couldn't make that connection. And for them, that was like, oh, that's where the amateurization phase occurs or whatever it was. And it was like, oh, because I learned concentric and eccentric. I didn't learn, and I learned amateurization phase over here at a whole nother time. I never got this when I was in class. But by talking to somebody who it was their language, they were like, oh, Weimar, it's this. And so again, you saw it, I sought out somebody who knew what was going on. So by the way, you guys, the lights keep going out because this building was built to have something what's called a leads building, which is if the lights don't detect motion within a certain amount of time, they think nobody's here, and so the lights go out. And so they're saving energy.
In in your career as a professor at Auburn University, it's natural that continuing your education kind of comes with the job. But for a lot of my students that you're talking to today, maybe let me backtrack. Optimal work is when the challenge of the work is balanced with like in other words, you don't want a job that's too easy and where you don't feel challenged, and you also don't want a job that's over challenging, finding that balance. So for someone who won't be getting into higher education as a career, how do they keep challenging themselves to learn more in their field, their area, their interest?
So two things I want to say real quick. Back in the day, when I was younger,
back in my day,
we didn't have these newfangled pewter things.
We played Oregon Trail on a floppy disk.
Dude, I didn't even have that. I didn't get a microwave until I was 12. But we used to have to go to the library, and we used to have to wait till the next journal article came out and that sort of stuff, and to find and to read books, or seek out people that knew what they were doing and have them teach you, but you literally have a ton of information at your fingertips right now. Sometimes my students, they'll want to learn something and we don't teach it here as a course. So I'll send them out to something called Coursera or Udemy, or what my brother calls YouTube University.
I like it.
And so you go and you learn about it. Now, the problem with YouTube University, though, is that you need to be
not
careful.
Accredited.
There it is. There it is. People get on there and they'll just say the most, it's like that commercial where the guy says, if you want to get shredded, all you need to do is eat hot dogs. And you're like, what? I don't think that's the appropriate course of action there. So you have to be a skeptic. You have to be a good consumer of knowledge. But there's so much information online that is accredited. There are open access journals, so what's going on, and that are appropriate for your field. I finished teaching early this year and I've got 3 classes, and class is optional, but I said, but you got to show up and ask any question you want. And so we've been talking about foot development, tying your shoes, what's the compliant arches, lifting mechanics, running mechanics, throwing mechanics, shooting mechanics. So, I mean, just whatever you want to talk about and the influence. And when in doubt, you can Google, you can AI, you can chat GPT, you can
Hmm.
ask these questions to these powerful computing tools that can help you answer some of these questions. And so continuing to be curious, you know, if you end up being a physical therapist, you know, one of the things I really kind of pound into my students' heads is don't be that guy, okay, or girl. Don't be, oh, your ACL reconstruction. Okay, we're gonna do
Mm.
oh yeah, 10 straight leg raises. And then we're gonna have you do heel slides, heel slides. If you can do those, it says here that we can add weight. Um, don't be that person, you know.
In my
Be,
mind, I think of Anthony Bourdain. Do you
yeah,
think he pulls out a cookbook and is like, okay, let's make let's make a souffle, and he's looking at this recipe, and he's like 3 ounces. No, if you're a trained chef, you not only do you know how to work the kitchen, but you can taste it and be like, oh, I know what it needs for this given situation. And
exactly.
that example that you're given makes me think of the artistry that's in all of our fields and all of our professions. We're not a traditional artist with paint, but it is an art that you just have to have a feel for.
So Coach Marsh, he was the Olympic swim coach. He was the swim coach here. And I used to tell him, sir, coaching is an art and a science. And all I want to do to help you is I want to help you with the science. Okay. And that's exactly what we have here. As a professional in kinesiology, it's an art and a science. Delivering what information we have, helping people be better, get better. It is the method by which we achieve that is the art. What we're doing, what we're influencing in them is the science. And you got to have both of them in order to be able to deliver the product of kinesiology.
A quick story about my dad, Dr. Weimar, that I think you'll like. We have a festival here called the Shrimp Festival in my little hometown, and my dad cooked the shrimp sauce for the festival for years and years. And they said, Pat, you're going to be retiring next year, so we need your recipe. And he was like, I don't have a recipe. I just make it. And they literally had to follow him around. And when he would do things, because he in his mind, it was never about like memorizing it. It was just it was just such a beautiful artistry. Like you're making this canvas, and the artist doesn't say, okay, step number one, they just do what they do.
Mom used to do this where she would cup her hand. I say, Ma, how much caraway seed goes in that? This much.
And it was the right amount every
It
time.
was every time,
but
every
but
time.
that this conversation though makes me think about insecurities, and some of my insecurities about as an athletic trainer getting my hands dirty, as they called it at Southern Miss, where a young professional, it's intimidating, but those mistakes are how we learn, and those lessons, how are you going to learn those lessons unless you get in there? And that's how you become the artist. You got to break some eggs, as they say, right? And you got to mess up some paintings, but you could always touch them up with happy little trees. But I would love your insight on how important it is to just put yourself out there in a controlled manner, of course, but to learn your art.
100%. 100%. And you do it by starting in less impactful opportunities, you know?
Mm.
So when I started coaching, I coached at, you know, the junior high kids, you know, and then I coached the JV team, and then I coached the varsity team, and then I coached at a junior college, and then I coached at a college, and you know, so it's all about learning those steps along the way and being in either in a supervised position, so like you were in your athletic training setup, where you would put your hands on them. And how many times have we talked about this, Bry, that people are losing their hand skills? That's becoming a long ago science. Everything is now, oh, we'll just get an MRI, you know, we'll just get an MRI.
Hmm.
But it's that that hand feel, like there was a guy that this MRI kept coming back negative, that there wasn't anything wrong. And he said they didn't do it in traction. He said that the labral tear on the hip was on the inside, on the medial border. The MRI was never going to catch that, but his hand
He could
feel,
feel it.
yep. And he was like, I don't care what that says. This is what's happening. And he says, and if you need to see it, then let's go in the MRI and put you in traction and we'll see it. And
Yeah.
sure enough, they did it.
And the art of hand skills isn't just applied to work. It interviews, it could be networking, professional development, problem solving. It all of
Problem
these
solving.
skills are
Buddy,
can be developed.
how many times have you known me to rebuild the floor in my laboratory? Okay. I'm not a carpenter, but you know what? I'm not afraid to swing a hammer. I'm not afraid to use my circular saw and get the wood and build my PVC pipe little mannequins to do my stuff. You know, I'm not, do it. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, it looks stupid. Oh, you know what?
But it
That's too
works.
bad. Exactly. Let me do. Did you learn? Why do
That
you think it's stupid?
that
Because it doesn't do XYZ. Then I win because you now learned how this was done.
that's like criticizing Tom Rathman because he's slow,
Yeah,
or Reggie Miller because he shoots funny, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it
Yep.
gets the job done. But it's these other areas that we don't think of developing skills. Like I think one of the negative things is people atone, oh well, they've like, I know we all have gifts, but to dismiss people's developed skills as just a gift, I think is not fair to their development of those natural gifts and skills. And it's all on a continuum. You could have been born on this end of the gift and develop that skill, like an Usain Bolt being the fastest man alive. But if you were on this end, you can still improve. You can still get better at
And
networking. You could still get better at resume writing. You could still get better at
at your
reading
elevator
people,
pitch.
reading a room.
Yep.
Just
Ele-
this,
an elevator pitch, you know, when you walk in and you first introduce yourself, you got to have your elevator pitch. Then
that's
you
a
need
really good way to put it.
your thesis, then you got to have your thesis pitch, you know, where it's like, hey, because you know they're going to say, hey, how are you going to introduce yourself? Well, how you doing? I'm Wendi Weimer. I'm a professor at biomechanics at Auburn University. I've been there for 20 years and I'm now the director of our lab. Now you've just learned a whole lot about me in 30 seconds, you know, and what I'm proud of and what I'm excited about and all the rest of this. You know, I want to tell you a story about one of my students has spina bifida and his hip is fused. But he's a wheelchair athlete. And he took the time to figure out how to brace himself in his chair, how to read the floor, how to move his chair. And when you play wheelchair basketball, you get classified, and there can only be certain points. So you can be a 1, a 1.5, a 2, but you can only have 14 points on the court at any point in time. And they would, because he was good and he could shoot and play defense and all the rest of this, they would always rank him higher than his level
Mm,
of disability. And so he did his dissertation on trying to explain that he was being punished for his
wow.
determination, his athleticism, his dedication to his sport.
The intangibles.
Yes. And that had nothing to do with his quote unquote disability.
Wow.
And so, and we just got what did we get? $600,000 grant to study
Wow.
that for wheelchair athletes. And he's a NCAA Division I wheelchair basketball champion. So
So any skill that a student might attest, well, I'm shy, and that it's okay to be shy, but you can work on it. You can get better at breaking the ice. You could get better at start. I love that what do you call it, elevator talk,
your elevator pitch. Yep.
elevator pitch. I think that's a really practical way to put it, because the real point is you never know when your most important interview of your life might present itself. And will you be
100%.
ready for that 30-second conversation that might
100%.
change your stars?
100%. There's been a million times where the universe will put somebody in front of you that will open a door for you that you didn't even know existed, let alone that you are passionate about. And that's, you just need to be open.
It reminds me of, I know, but when we talk about the universe, God, but you still have to make the play. So if God's the
Yeah,
coach, he's like, look, I put you, it's that old joke about there was a Cajun and the waters were rising and they came to
exactly.
get him, and he's like, no, God's gonna say it. And then after the truck, the boat, the
The radio,
helicopter,
the helicopter.
and when he gets to heaven, he's like, God, I thought you had my back. He's like, dude, I sent you a truck, a boat, a I sent you all these things. And so I think that that's an important point too, is that the universe will present these opportunities, but you still have to take advantage and be
100%.
prepared to make the play,
100%.
to make the shot. There, you know, the coaches design the plays for you, but you still have to be ready to answer the bell, as they say, when they call your number.
100%. That's exactly right.
Well, listen, we're at an hour conversation, so it's tradition in professional development. My guest gives the homework assignment. So, what you got for the students to close out the semester, Dr. Weimer?
Okay. Well, there's two things that have really been the running theme through all of this, and one of them is to be open, to be curious and learn, and to question. And so, and the other one is lengthen your own line. So you have two questions. Your first one is, what are you curious about? And write one question that captures one component of the thing that you're curious about. Because knowing, I'm curious about the foot, but that doesn't get me very far. I need to know a little bit more. And so you need to also learn how to ask a good question. So that's your first assignment, is to ask a good question about anything that you're curious about. How do they make glass? How do they shoot a television program? How do the golf cameramen follow that ball all the way down and never lose it? Okay. Whatever your question is, think about how you're going to ask that question. And then the second question is, or the second half of your assignment is to think about a situation on how you can lengthen your own line, or a situation where you diminished somebody else's line, and then think about how you could have lengthened your line, achieved the same distance between you and somebody who was not as accomplished as you, but you did it by lengthening your own line and not putting them down. Okay.
Outstanding. That you asking those hypothetical questions made me want to go straight to YouTube University and
No, man, you got to sit with those. You got to sit with those. You got to get those out of your
you got to
soul.
let it bake.
It's the bracketology assignment, right?
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too, buddy.
And you know how much I love you guys, and how much I appreciate everything you and the lab's done for my life. So uh, I hope all is well, and hopefully we'll see you sooner rather than later.
Amen. All right, buddy. It was great seeing you. Give my best to the fam.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Weimer.
All right.